The boy sat alone beside the hitching rail, knees pulled tight to his chest, dust clinging to the wet tracks on his cheeks. The sun was sliding low, stretching the shadows of the storefronts across the street like long fingers reaching for him. Yet no one reached. Boots passed, skirts brushed the air, a wagon creaked by. Not one slowed. He was small for his years, all sharp bones and hollow eyes. His shirt too big at the shoulders, the cuffs rolled twice to keep them from swallowing his hands. A bruise bloomed dark along his jaw, half hidden beneath the dirt. He did not cry anymore. Crying had brought nothing earlier, and the town had taught him that lesson quick. Across the street, a man sat his horse as if he'd grown there. The cowboy's hat was pulled low, brim worn thin and pale from years of sun. He was not old, but life had weathered him into something quiet and reserved, the kind of man whose presence you noticed only after he'd been there a while. His coat hung open, dusted white at the hem. One gloved hand rested on the saddle horn, the other held the reins loose, easy. His horse stood patient, head low, tail flicking at flies. His name was Elias Crow, though most folks simply called him Crow, and even that only when they had reason. He had come into town for flour and nails, maybe a bit of salt pork if the price wasn't foolish. He had not come to watch a child be left behind. Yet he watched. Crow's eyes moved slowly, taking in the way the boy flinched when a man laughed too loud across the street. The way he kept glancing toward the far end of town as if expecting someone to appear from the heat and dust. Expectation has a shape, and Crow recognized it. He had worn it once himself, long ago. A woman stepped out of the mercantile, a bundle under her arm. She saw the boy, hesitated, then looked away and quickened her step. Another man spat into the dirt near the rail, scowled at the child as if the boy had chosen to be there, then walked on. The sheriff passed last. He slowed, adjusted his belt, and bent just enough to say something Crow could not hear. The boy shook his head. The sheriff sighed, straightened, and walked on. Crow felt something tighten behind his ribs. He told himself it was none of his business. Towns had their reasons, children had their stories. He had learned, the hard way, that stepping into other folks' trouble often meant carrying it longer than you could afford. He had a place north of the valley, a small spread backed by low hills and cottonwoods along a thin, stubborn creek. It was quiet there. Quiet was hard-earned. Still, he did not turn his horse. The boy's stomach growled, loud enough to carry. He wrapped his arms tighter round himself, as if he could fold the hunger away, when the wind kicked up, lifting dust into his face. He closed his eyes and leaned forward, forehead touching his knees. For a moment, he looked like he might simply disappear into himself. Crow swung down from the saddle. The sound of his boots on the hard-packed dirt made the boy lift his head. His eyes widened, wary, calculating, already braced for whatever came next. Crow stopped a few paces away, careful not to crowd him. You got a name? Crow asked. His voice was low, roughened by disuse, like a gate that hadn't been opened in some time. The boy hesitated. Tom, he said finally, the word thin and uncertain. Crow nodded, as if that settled something important. He reached into his coat, slow, deliberate, and brought out a small paper-wrapped bundle. He crouched and set it on the rail between them, then stepped back. Bread, he said. Salted meat. Tom stared at it. Suspicion flickered, then hunger won. He reached out, snatched the bundle, and tore into it with a desperation that made Crow look away. No one should eat like that if they'd been fed right. Where's your folks? Crow asked after a moment. Tom chewed, swallowed, shook his head. Gone. It was a simple word, but it carried weight. Crow had heard it spoken many ways: angry, bitter, broken. This one sounded emptied. Crow stood, dusted his hands on his trousers. He could feel the town watching now, pretending not to. He knew what they would say if he stayed. He knew what they would say if he left. His horse shifted behind him, leather creaking softly. The sun dipped lower, gilding the street in gold, and Crow realized with a quiet, unwelcome certainty that if he walked away now, the boy would still be there when the shadows disappeared. He looked down at Tom, at the small hands clutching food like a lifeline. Finish up, Crow said. Tom froze, eyes lifting, searching the cowboy's face for the trick in his words. Crow turned toward his horse, one hand already on the saddle, and added, then you best decide if you're stayin' or comin'. He did not say where. He did not need to. Behind him, the boy's chewing slowed. the weight of the choice settling in as the last of the daylight slipped away. The boy finished eating with care now, as if the bread might vanish if he rushed it. Crow pretended not to watch, though every scrape of paper and every small swallow reached him clear as a bell. The street had thinned as evening settled doors. Closed lamps flickered to life behind windows, their glow warm and distant. Somewhere down the block, a piano began to play, a tune that carried more loneliness than joy. Tom wiped his hands on his trousers and stood. He was shorter than Crow had guessed, his shoulders narrow, his boots cracked and loose at the heel. He did not step closer, did not step away, he only waited. Crow swung back into the saddle and gathered the reins. The horse started forward, slow and steady, hooves tapping the dirt with a patient rhythm. For a few steps, there was no sound behind him. Then the footsteps came, light, careful, keeping distance. Crow did not look back. They passed the last buildings at the edge of town and followed the wagon road as it bent west. The land opening into low grass and scrub. The air cooled as the sun sank, the sky bleeding from gold to violet. Crow set an easy pace, one that did not test small legs. He told himself he was only seeing the boy as far as the creek. Told himself that once Tom was fed and rested, the town might seem less cruel in the morning. He did not believe it. After a while, Tom spoke. "You ain't from here." No. Where you going? Home. The boy considered that. "You got folks?" Crow's jaw tightened. "Not no more." They walked in silence after that. Crickets stirred in the grass. An owl called from somewhere unseen. When the creek came into view, a ribbon of darker land beneath the cottonwoods, Tom slowed. "This far's fine," the boy said. Though his voice betrayed him, Crow stopped his horse. The water murmured softly, steady, and indifferent. He could turn back now. He could give the boy directions, maybe a few coins. It would be enough to ease his conscience and light enough to carry. Instead, he dismounted. "You can sleep by the fire," Crow said, as if the words had already been decided somewhere deeper than thought. "Just for the night." Tom's eyes flicked up, bright and cautious. "Then I go." "We'll see." They crossed the creek and followed a narrow trail that climbed into low hills. The ranch came into view as the moon rose. One small house of rough-hewn boards, a lean-to stable, and a corral that had seen better years. A lantern hung by the door, its flame wavering in the breeze. Inside, Crow lit the stove and set water to heat. Tom stood near the door, hands clasped behind his back, taking in the room as if afraid to touch anything. A table, 2 chairs, a bed pushed against the far wall. Nothing more. Crow handed him a blanket. "You can take the bed." Tom shook his head hard. "I don't need it." Crow held his gaze. "You do." The boy relented, crawling onto the mattress and curling in on himself. Within minutes, exhaustion claimed him. His breathing evened, deep and trusting in a way that made Crow's chest ache. Crow sat at the table long after the lantern burned low, staring at the boy's sleeping form. He thought of the town, of the sheriff's tired eyes, of the way people had looked through Tom as if he were already gone. He thought of the mornings he spent alone, of the silence he had come to rely on. The morning came thin and pale, the kind that crept in quietly, as if unsure it was welcome. Crow was already awake when the light touched the edges of the hills. He stood at the corral, tightening a loose rail, listening to the sounds of the place come alive, the creak of leather, the soft snort of his horse, the wind moving through dry grass. Behind him, the door opened. Tom stepped out, blanket draped around his shoulders, hair sticking up in uneven tufts. He blinked against the light and watched Crow for a moment before speaking. "You always up this early?" "Earlier," Crow said. Tom nodded, absorbing that as fact. He wandered closer, careful not to cross into the corral. "Smells like coffee." Crow poured a cup and handed it over. Watered down and mild. Tom took it with both hands, warmth seeping into his fingers. For a few minutes, there was nothing else, just the steam rising, the sun lifting higher. Then Crow heard it. Hooves, more than one. He straightened slowly, eyes narrowing toward the trail that led down from the ridge. Dust lifted in the distance, faint but unmistakable. Tom followed, his gaze, his small body tensing. "Is that?" the boy began. Crow set his cup down. "Go inside." Tom did not move. The riders crested the hill. 3 men, spread loose, moving with the careless confidence of those who expected no trouble. Their hats were pulled low, coats dark against the brightening sky. One laughed at something the others could not hear. Asterisk Crow's hand drifted toward the rifle leaning against the fence. Asterisk the men reined in a short distance from the corral. The one in front slid down from his saddle, boots hitting the dirt hard. He had a thick neck and a scar that pulled one side of his mouth into a permanent sneer. Asterisk mornin', the man said. His eyes flicked past Crow, landed on Tom, and stayed there. We're looking for a boy. Asterisk Tom stepped back, bumping into Crow's leg. Crow felt the tremor before he saw it. Asterisk you won't find him here, Crow said. Asterisk the man smiled without warmth. Sheriff says otherwise. Says the kid wandered off with some drifter. Asterisk Crow said nothing. Asterisk one of the other men spat into the dirt. Town's tired of feeding a mouth that don't belong to no one. Asterisk the words hung there, ugly and deliberate. Tom's fingers clenched in Crow's coat. Asterisk the scarred man took a step closer. We're taking him back. Asterisk Crow shifted, placing himself fully between the boy and the man. His voice stayed even. He ain't going. Asterisk the smile faded. The man's eyes hardened. You sure you want to make this hard? Asterisk Crow thought of the night before, of the boy curled tight in sleep, of the choice he'd tried not to name. He reached back and rested a hand on Tom's shoulder, a small, steady weight. Asterisk yeah, he said. I am. Asterisk the moment stretched thin. Wind whispered through the grass. A hawk cried somewhere overhead. Asterisk the scarred man moved first. Asterisk he lunged, fast and mean, reaching past Crow for the boy. Crow reacted without thought. His elbow drove back, catching the man in the ribs, knocking the breath from him. The other two drew their pistols in the same heartbeat. Asterisk Crow shoved Tom toward the house. Inside. Now asterisk a gunshot cracked the air, the sound sharp and final. Wood splintered from the corral rail inches from Crow's head. He dove for cover, rolling behind the water trough as another shot rang out. His rifle came up smooth, familiar, the weight of it grounding him. Asterisk last chance, one of the men shouted. Asterisk Crow fired once. Not to kill, just enough. The bullet tore into the dirt, at the man's feet. The message was clear. Asterisk for a moment, it looked like the men might push it. Their faces were tight, calculating. Then the scarred man cursed and spat blood. Asterisk ain't worth it, he growled. Sheriff can sort this mess. Asterisk they mounted up, and rode off, dust trailing behind them like a threat not yet finished. Asterisk silence rushed back in. Heavy and shaking, Asterisk Crow lowered the rifle, hand steady though his heart was not. He turned toward the house. Asterisk Tom stood in the doorway, eyes wide, face pale. Asterisk the danger had passed for now, but Crow knew, as surely as he knew the feel of his own name, that the line had been crossed. Asterisk, and there would be no turning back. The night after the storm did not bring rest. Crow lay awake on his bedroll near the door, listening to the way the land breathed after rain, slow, heavy, as if exhausted by its own fury. The house smelled of wet earth and wood smoke. Tom slept, fitfully on the mattress, turning now and then, murmuring words Crow could not catch. Asterisk near dawn. Crow heard it. Asterisk not thunder, not wind. Asterisk hooves. Asterisk distant at first. A low vibration carried through the ground before it reached the ears. Crow sat up, every muscle alert. He rose without sound and eased the door open just enough to look out. Asterisk 3 riders came out of the gray morning mist, moving with purpose. Not the same men as before. These wore cleaner coats, their hats straighter. One of them carried a badge that caught the faint light. Asterisk the sheriff. Asterisk Crow closed the door and turned. Tom was already awake, sitting up, eyes wide but steady. Asterisk there. Back, the boy whispered. Asterisk yes. Asterisk Tom swallowed. You gonna fight em? Asterisk Crow shook his head. Not if I don't have to. Asterisk he opened the door before they could knock. The sheriff dismounted first. A tall man with tired eyes and a face lined by years of decisions that never pleased everyone. He took off his hat, respectful but firm. Asterisk mornin', Crow, he said. We need to talk. Asterisk Crow stepped aside. Then talk. Asterisk the sheriff glanced past him, saw Tom. His shoulders sagged just a little. Boy's been through enough, he said quietly. Asterisk one way or another, Crow replied. Asterisk they stood there. Rain water dripping from eaves, the air thick with unspoken things. Finally, the sheriff spoke again. Town don't want him, says. He's trouble. Says folks already lost enough. Asterisk Crow's voice stayed level. So you aim to make him lose more? Asterisk the sheriff winced. I aim to keep the peace. Asterisk Crow nodded slowly. Peace ain't always quiet. Asterisk the sheriff looked at Tom, then back at Crow. You willing to take him on, feed him, teach him, answer for him when he stumbles? Asterisk Crow did not hesitate. Yes. Asterisk silence stretched between them. The two deputies shifted, uneasy. At last, the sheriff sighed and reached into his coat. He pulled out a folded paper and held it out. There's no law against a man raising a child, he said. Not if he claims him proper. Crow took the paper. His hand was steady. The sheriff met Tom's eyes. You mind living out here, son? Tom glanced up at Crow, searching his face. Whatever he saw, there must have been enough. He shook his head. No, sir. The sheriff nodded once, then turned back toward his horse. Then that's that. As they rode away, the sun finally broke through the clouds, light spilling across the wet land. Crow stood in the doorway, the paper warm in his hand, the weight of it both heavy and right. Tom stepped closer, close enough that Crow could feel his presence without looking. You really mean it? The boy asked. I ain't going back. Crow looked down at him. You're home? Tom breathed out, a sound halfway between a laugh and a sob. He leaned into Crow without thinking, forehead pressing against the man's side. Crow froze for a heartbeat, then rested a hand on the boy's shoulder. The land stretched quiet before them, washed clean by rain, waiting. Somewhere far off, a hawk cried, and Crow felt, for the first time in years, that the quiet might be something shared rather than endured. The seasons turned slow and sure, as they always did, indifferent to the troubles of men. Summer leaned into autumn, the heat easing, the land paling from green to gold. Crow's ranch settled into a new rhythm, one that no longer belonged to him alone. Tom learned the weight of days. He learned how dawn smelled different after rain, how a horse's ears told you more than its mouth ever would, how silence could mean peace or warning. Crow taught without speeches, showing with hands and patience. When Tom failed, Crow corrected him. When the boy succeeded, Crow nodded, once, like it mattered, and it did. Some nights, Tom asked questions, not many. He would sit on the step, staring out at the dark, knees drawn up the same way he had in town, though the fear had softened around the edges. Why'd you stay alone so long? He asked one evening. Crow watched the fire die down to coals. Didn't think I had much worth giving. Tom considered that, then said quietly, you was wrong. The words landed harder than any blow Crow had taken in years. He did not answer. He did not need to. Trouble did not return the way Crow had expected. No riders, no law, just whispers carried on. The wind when Greyhawk passed through again, a faint smile in his eyes. Towns forgot, he said. They always do. By winter, Tom's boots fit better. His shoulders filled out. The bruise on his jaw was long gone, replaced by a faint scar Crow saw only when the light struck just right. On cold nights, the boy read aloud by lantern light, his voice steady, stumbling less with each page. One morning, snow fell soft and clean, blanketing the land. Tom stood outside, catching flakes on his glove, laughing without restraint. Crow watched from the doorway, something warm and unfamiliar settling in his chest. He realized then that the quiet he had guarded all those years had not been peace at all. It had been waiting. As the sun rose over the white hills, Crow stepped out beside the boy. They stood together, breath clouding the air. The world wide and open before them. No one wanted the child. But one man did. And in choosing him, Crow found he had been chosen to.